Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show. Today, I am beyond excited because we have a truly special guest, someone who's had a huge impact on my life and has become a mentor to me, even though she doesn't know it yet.
Aw.
I'm so excited, guys, to introduce you to Kathy Fettke. Now, Kathy is the co founder of the Real Wealth community and has spent years and years helping people achieve financial freedom through real estate. She is a total powerhouse in this industry and she specializes in teaching people how to build real estate portfolios using sustainable, smart planning. I absolutely love how Kathy breaks down like incredible complex topics. I got to see her break down market cycles and economic trends in a not so boring way. And it's really important for us so that we can stay informed as we're making investing decisions. Now, Kathy's also an author. Her latest book, Scaling Smart. I don't know if you guys can see this or not for those that are watching online. Scaling Smart is all about building a business and leveraging sustainable processes and team and all the things. So we'll be discussing that in our conversation today. But of course, Kathy's been everywhere. CNN, CNBC, Fox News. She also has her own show, The Real Wealth Show, and she's the co-host on Bigger Pockets on the Market podcast. And on a personal note, I even got an opportunity to meet her amazing daughter, Krista, in Portugal. And let me tell you, Kathy's influence does not fall far from the tree. She is an incredible wife, an incredible mom, and someone who truly walks the walk. Kathy, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. And that's so fun that you got to meet up with Krista in Portugal. I'm looking forward to going with her in the spring.
Oh my goodness. So, Kathy, many of our listeners are busy women just fighting for their lives, feeling really overwhelmed with their demanding careers and searching for a way to reclaim their time and their peace of mind. I would just love you to start off sharing a little bit about your journey and what led you to pursuing real estate as your path to freedom.
You know, it's funny. I just found my diary from
Mhm.
over 20 years ago before I started Real Wealth. And I was so desperate. I was reading that and I wished I could go back and talk to my younger self. So I absolutely know the struggle. And as I was reading page by page, it was like, dear God, help me. How do I learn how to make more money? It came at a time when I was very lucky that my husband Rich was a successful business coach. He had just come out with a new book with Simon and Schuster. They gave him a six-figure advance. It was like everything was great. We bought our first house. We had two little kids, and it afforded me to be a stay-at-home mom, which I wanted to do when the kids were little. Everything was awesome, and we were investing 10% of our income, or his income, I should say, 10% of
Yeah.
for savings, 10% for fun, 10% for charity, like doing all these buckets, all the things our financial planner told us to do. Then in 2003, when Rich was on his book tour for his book with Simon Schuster called Extreme Success, he noticed a freckle. And that freckle turned out to be, I know he's like a freckly guy, he's a redhead, but he noticed this one freckle. It turned out to be melanoma. Suddenly,
Mhm.
everything in our lives came to a complete stop in that moment because the doctors,
Mhm.
they didn't have the cure back then. It was pretty much a death sentence. The doctor said, you know, if this is spread like we think it has, you probably have 6 months.
Oh my
That's how
goodness.
fast your life can change. Um, we blew through our savings, we blew through our investments. Like all the work we'd done to save was gone very quickly. Plus, it was an eye-opening moment for me. Like, what if the doctor's right? I've got these two little kids, this new house. It was a $4,000 a month payment. We did what very many Americans do, and we went too big.
Yeah.
So we had this $4,000 a month payment, which
Mhm.
today would be like 10 grand,
Yeah.
in our mortgage. Crazy.
Yeah.
So that's when I went on this desperate search to learn how to get out of that trap, how to get out of
Mhm.
that spiral where you feel like you can never get ahead. You think you've got a little savings, then something happens, your car breaks down or whatever, and is gone.
Yeah.
So that's when I started. I had a radio show on the side in San Francisco. This was pre-podcast. And I just pivoted to I know, it was a long time ago, but, just pivoted to a desperate search for how do other people do it? How do people create this thing I had heard about called passive income so they didn't have to stress out so much?
Mm. I love that, Kathy. And in your book, Scaling Smart, you talk about finding your why, right? You share the journey of discovering your why from wanting that freedom with your time being financially independent from and as well as for your family's security. So for those busy professionals who are listening right now, especially those who are in these higher stress fields, how important do you feel it is for them to personally define their why before exploring any side hustles, whether it's real estate or anything else? What are your thoughts and what advice would you have for them?
Honestly, it's no matter what you're doing, it is probably the most important thing. The
Mm,
most important couple of hours you could spend on your life is getting clear. And I can't tell you how many people I've coached. We have 77,000 members at Real Wealth. So I talk to a lot of people. I was a personal and professional coach like Rich for before that. We were certified to coach people to live the lives of their dreams. I cannot even tell you how many professionals just never really stop to think about
mm,
what truly would make them happy.
yeah.
We just sort of get on this treadmill and it becomes all about the chase, the money chase. And it's until you get so clear about what truly fulfills you,
Mm,
about what your ideal day would look like, who your ideal friends would be, what your health would be like, how much time you spend with your family, going through these things to be so crystal clear that now you have I want to I want to say like a buy box, it's a real estate term, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
now this is my why.
Mm,
And then all the distractions of life can't penetrate that. It's like it becomes your guiding light. And too often we just don't do it. And it changes.
yeah.
So we need to stay on top of it. Rich looks at his I'm not as devoted as he is, but he looks at his why every day. Wakes up in the morning, takes his coffee, looks at his why to remember what's most important because it's so easy, easier than ever to get distracted these days.
So true, right? We have so much hustle and bustle. We have so many distractions, social media, all the things. And you're absolutely right. One of my friends, Kelly Resendez, she's one of the leaders at Go Abundance Women.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks at hers every day too. And every year I say, Kelly, I'm going to start looking at mine every day like you. But I have yet to do that. I may add that to my quarterly planning, which I'm going to be doing tomorrow with Mandy McAllister. I may look at my quarterly planning for 2025 and add that on there. And so that's why I feel like the book, Scaling Smart, it is just so timely right now, right? As I
Mm.
plan out for the next year. So, again, a huge gift. I look forward to diving deep into it. I know you're going to have a series at some point. So, I can't wait to dive in with you there.
Thank you.
Okay, so many of our listeners, Kathy, are new to real estate, completely new. They're hesitating to take that first step because it is a huge responsibility, right? So, how would you suggest someone with a higher income but limited time capital and someone who's looking to offset some of their taxes approach that first investment like kind of safely by dipping the toe in a little bit? What would be your recommendation?
So this is what we do. This is our entire business at Real Wealth is helping busy professionals still get in the game.
Mhm.
It's too often we think that investing in real estate means you need to be a house flipper or
Yeah,
you need to get in there and fix things. You don't have time for that if you're a busy professional.
yeah,
I'm born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. Our business started there. Tech workers make a lot of money,
yeah.
but they also work a lot. They work 60 to 80 hours a week. They don't have time to fix houses.
Mm-mm.
And so people get stuck because maybe there's so many A&E or HGTV shows showing that that's how you make money in real estate is through flipping.
Yeah.
I was so lucky when I started the Real Wealth show over 20 years ago that I entered it through a different lens, the
Mm.
the whole business, because I was looking for money right away, right? I had to figure out how to pay the mortgage. So I brought on sponsors.
Mm,
And one of my sponsors was a mortgage broker, and he was the highest paying one. So I had to really like do a good job for him. And I just told my husband, like, boring. Our show has just become about mortgages. I'm going to lose my audience. And he goes, no, 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 no. Just interview the clients, find out what they're doing with these mortgages. So I did. That
mm,
was the angle we took. And I got to learn all the ways that people were legitimately making money, even in a high price market like California. And 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 the greatest wealth I learned came from longer term investments, not the shorter term ones. Because if you're buying a house, fixing it up, and selling it, that's an active business in
yeah.
real estate. And it's taxed as an active business. It's taxed the highest tax rate that you would face in real estate. Versus if you held it a year as a rental property, that's when it gets juicy, right? That's when you get all these enormous tax benefits.
Yeah.
And over time, if you keep holding that property, you've got somebody else paying off your mortgage for you. And it's appreciating over time if you buy in the right market where you're not actually having to actively be involved in it. So I would look as I ended up becoming a mortgage broker. So again, I had this opportunity to look at people's financials. They would put it all in front of me. I had to know everything about them. So I could see who was truly wealthy.
Mm,
That was the key. And it was like, oh my gosh, these people that had held their property.
mm,
Because over time, these two things are happening. Lots of things are happening, but your tenant's paying down your mortgage while the value is going up, but then you get all these tax benefits.
yeah.
So that's when I learned. But then I also discovered, being in California, that it's really hard to make the numbers work. So I was lucky enough to have Robert Kiyosaki as one of my guests on the Real Wealth Show, and he taught me how to invest out of state, which is what we focused on. So that was a really long-winded, and I don't even
No,
think I
no, no.
answered your question,
No, no,
but
that was so good. That was so good. It's all about dipping the toe, and I think you rounded it out really well at the end because I was just speaking with a couple clients of mine. They're in Palm Springs, and they're looking, to invest, and they're nervous and wondering, well, is this possible for me? Can I invest remotely? Can I invest out of state? I'm
yeah,
wondering, can you speak to that a little bit? Because that is the hesitation. Some of our community members are living in cost prohibitive markets. I've
of
got one
course.
in Hawaii. So, what
Yeah, if
could
you
you talk to
make
that a
a
little
high income, you probably live in an expensive place. It's
bit?
just higher salaries
Yeah.
tend to go with higher, more expensive areas. So
Hmm.
it's typical. And if you're afraid, this is what I tell most people. That's great. I mean, Rich's first book, called Extreme Success, was all about overcoming fear because
Hmm.
he's an extreme athlete. That's what the name of the book. And so, like, what did it take for an extreme athlete to like jump off the Golden Gate Bridge or something like that? Like what do you have? And he did. Uh, but and so he would talk about how to make fear your friend. So instead of
Hmm.
being like, "Oh, fear bad, bad." No, 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 no. Fear is your protector and your
Hmm.
guardian. And it's like, imagine if you had a guardian by you all the time. You would probably want to have a conversation, like, right? So it's just this part of you that's wanting to protect you. So the better you get to know and have conversations with your fear, sounds crazy,
Yeah.
it works. Find out what your fear is trying to tell you. And usually it's just that you need more information. That's all. If
Hmm.
you're afraid, I'm not afraid to buy real estate, but I used to be because I didn't understand it. So the more you can take the steps towards understanding and answering the fear, instead of being like, oh, I'm afraid, I better not do it. Instead, like, what are you afraid of? And
Hmm.
and then you can get the answers you need, because it may be something you need to know.
Yeah.
You can lose money in real estate. You can lose everything in real estate. So your fear is a good thing. It's a good thing. Asking the question, what am I afraid of? Well, I'm afraid that I'll get taken advantage of, or maybe the market will drop, or I mean, what are some things? There's all kind. I'll lose my money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Great. Look into it.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in an area. You don't want to be investing in an area where you would lose money. And that would typically happen. A lot of people will go online and look at a property. Oh, this looks nice, but not understand the area.
Yeah.
If you buy in a declining area where there's not growth, you will lose money. It's just that simple, So don't, you've got to understand the market and have a strong team in place
Yeah.
with a strong track record. Meaning, if you're investing out of state, you need a great property manager. You need support.
Yeah.
And so again, all the fears that will come up, write them down
Yeah.
and investigate. Let them be your guide.
I want to lean in a little bit more, Kathy. This conversation is so pertinent to my audience because what I'm finding is that some of us are allowing fear to paralyze us, but what you're saying is fear means we need more information. Fear means we need to start asking some questions. We need to start asking the right questions.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And so, what's next, Kathy? So, we're asking questions. Do we take action? How long do we give ourselves an expiration date so that we could do something about it, right? Because when I was starting with real estate, we've grown our portfolio to 22 properties, but I spent 2 years in analysis paralysis. My
Mhm.
background is pharmacy. I'm a pharmacist by training, and I will analyze something to the dickens. I will turn it to the left, to the right, and not take action. And so, what's the answer? What's your answer to that? When do we say to ourselves, "Okay, I've asked the questions. Now I need to make a decision"?
I think you did a wonderful thing. I mean, just do something. That's
Mm,
that's what I tell people. Do something. And even if that's something, I don't know if your audience is mostly women, but
mostly,
I'll
yes.
okay. So we have an incredible guidance system.
Yeah.
We are tapped in. We
Yeah.
have intuition.
Mhm.
So stop and listen to it.
Mm.
And when you do, the wisdom will shine forth. What you know is that people make money in real estate.
Yeah.
What you also know is people lose money. So find out how people are making money and find out how they're losing it, right? And do the stuff that works. So it's I've watched too many people jump into real estate blind, myself
Mm.
included, and lose money.
Yeah.
So taking the time to understand the thing you're doing is incredibly important. This is money. This is your hard-earned money. And we need to be cautious with it. We need to be intelligent with it. So taking that and being able to tune in and listen to the fears you have, listen very clearly, write it down, and then get the information. To give you an example, I had a man who came into my office, and well, I was still a I was still a mortgage broker at the time. It was like 2009 when the housing market had collapsed and you could get
Oh
stuff for
my gosh. Yeah.
practically nothing. It was
Yeah.
crazy, but there was risk. It
Mhm.
was still risky because you could buy a house for $5,000, but it was, the rest of the neighborhood was boarded up. It was crazy. Always risk. Cheap. There were cheap houses, but there was a different kind of risk at the time.
Yeah.
So this husband came in. It was actually a friend of the family's, and said, "We know it's clearly the time to buy." A lot of people couldn't see that, but he could. Like, wow, stuff is cheap. It's time to buy.
Yeah.
Help me, And we had by then we had teams nationwide that could find these foreclosures, fix them up. It was kind of the beginning of the turnkey model that we were on the forefront of. I had flown around the country to find people who knew how to get the foreclosures, knew how to fix them, knew how to put them under management so that our busy professionals in California could buy them and not have to freak out, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, "How can you help us?" And then she just burst out in tears. And
Oh.
I think that's one of the strengths of being a woman in this business is that maybe people feel more comfortable to, share how they feel. So she just burst into tears. She's like, "I'm terrified." And I was like, "Great. Okay, what do you need?" And she's like, "Well, I just don't know anything." Well, of course you're terrified. I said, "I've got a property tour coming up to Dallas. Why don't you go on it? But only you, not with your husband, so that he's not influencing you, so that
Mm.
you can make your decisions, so that you can get the information. You can talk to the property managers, walk the properties, understand the market, the tenant, all of that." She went on the tour by herself. She comes back with 5 properties under contract because she got the information she needed and she wasn't being bullied, basically, not influenced by someone else saying, "Come on," you know? She needed time like you.
Mm.
Like you needed time. That's okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I love that. That is such an important approach, Kathy, because you're right, having that autonomy essentially, right? To make the decision, to see it for yourself without the pressure of the influence, I think is the key. And a lot of times in our community, we have the spouse, the partner, we have some hesitation. I know when I was getting started, my husband, I took him along kicking and screaming.
Well, no, I was the same. I was more of the bully in our relationship. 100%. Rich was like, "I need more time." And
Mhm.
instead of honoring that, I was like, you don't have more time because real estate doesn't work that way. You have to get in contract."
Yeah.
That I later learned you can do that. You can get in contract because
Mhm.
these good deals don't last, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's true.
but in contract, you have 10 days. You've got inspection time there. So, don't feel like just because you go in contract, you're stuck. I mean, read the contract. You need contingencies that give you time to investigate, right? What I learned is that usually you've got someone who can go and just jump in, and you've got a partner usually in relationship who needs more information.
Yeah.
So if you're the one who wants to go, you need that other person to slow you down.
Yeah.
And if you're the person who needs all the information, you need the person to get you off your butt. So
Mhm.
it's a great combo, and it's very typical. We are attracted to our opposite
Yeah.
generally. So
Mhm.
what I learned is, oh, my husband just needs more information. That's all. That's all, and then he's
Mhm.
gonna do more due diligence than me, and this is gonna be a good partnership. So, it'd be like, okay, he's representing fear, right? So what
Mhm.
does he need?
Yeah.
What does he need? And there were deals he was right. It's like, "You're right. I woulda jumped into this, it would have been bad. But because you forced me to slow down, we were able to look at things I wouldn't have seen otherwise."
100%, Kathy. So there's this one neighborhood that I drive by, and I love driving by this neighborhood. And I tell my husband every time, thank you, thank you, thank you for not letting me buy here.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was all in. But
Yep.
he saw something. And he is a bit more risk averse, but he couldn't see what I saw in the neighborhood. I saw the opportunity. I saw the beauty of it. It was new construction. We'll talk about your rent to build in a moment. And I was all in, but for him, he was like, "No, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense." And so we let that deal pass us by, and looking back now, it would have been a terrible deal for our portfolio. So I'm so grateful for him. So, ladies, women in medicine, docs, our husbands are not here to try to make sure that we're not great. They want us to be great as well. It's fear, it's their own fear. And, they are here as well, as a support, hopefully, right? They're here to support us every step of the way. So this is a great reminder for myself and for others in the community for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it could, it's either way. You just one of the couple is usually a little more aggressive than the other,
Yeah.
and we need each other. And the sooner we can get on the same page and again,
Yeah.
coming back to the why, that's the first section of our book, Scaling Smart, is get so clear. And you've got to
Mm.
be on the same page as a husband and wife of
Yeah.
what is that thing you're trying to create. And once it's pretty easy for everybody in the family to say, yeah, we would like financial freedom. We would like passive income. We would like to know that we'll be taken care of in our senior years, that we could take care of our parents and put our kids through, like, you know what you want.
Yeah.
So then you can together design the plan and create the buy box so that you both are working and paddling in the same direction, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So, Kathy, you mentioned the why again. If we can go back to scaling smart, something that I read in here, and a moment of transparency, and I thank you for sharing that, is sometimes we're our worst boss as entrepreneurs.
Most of
Wouldn't
the
you
time.
say? Most of the time, right? We will work ourselves down to the bone. And so I have some docs here who have their own practices. They may have a coaching practice on the side, in addition to seeing their patient as, in their own private practice. So you mentioned how work for yourself doesn't always mean more freedom, and it could sometimes lead to burnout and overwork. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm seeing that a lot in our community. What would you say are some of the steps they can take to avoid falling into that trap that you fell into, that I fell into, where we're overworking ourselves, down to the bone
Yeah, we're we leave the 9 to 5 for the 24/7.
to work 24 hours? Yeah.
I mean, I in the beginning of Real Wealth, I was people would be like, "You sent me this email at 2 a.m." I'm like, "Yeah, that's when I work." I mean, I got kids. I gotta do it when everybody's asleep. So, it's unbelievable how hard we work as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs and business owners. People don't understand. But over time, Rich and I have learned, and that's what the book is about, how to create a company that runs itself, how to create
Mhm.
a business that needs you or doesn't need you. And essentially, you're either a solopreneur, or you're a business owner. It's not both. You can't be both. So
Mm.
if you if you look at it from the perspective of people buying businesses, in the beginning of Real Wealth, it was all me, everywhere. Real Wealth show is my face. I guess it still is, but Real Wealth, it was me, and I was doing most of the work. So if ever I wanted to sell the business, and I've had businesses in the past that I tried to sell and wasn't that successful at it because it was all me. Who's
Mm.
going to buy that? If I'm trying to exit the company or retire someday and I'm the one doing all the work, you don't have a business. You have a job.
Mm.
So if you're trying to
Ouch, that hurt. Wait a second. Wait a second. For those sitting in the back, could you say that one more time? Because that cut me.
if you're the one doing all the work, you have created a job, not a business. A business is something that can run with or without you. Because if you were to sell it, the person buying it needs to be able to operate it without you. And that's why my team at Real Wealth worked so hard, mostly my husband, to take me out of it because
Mm.
and I went kicking and screaming, trust me. It
Really?
is the hardest it's so hard to let go of the reins of the thing that you built, that you created, you birthed. It's just like being a mother, right? The first day you take them to kindergarten, you're like, "Ah!" Or the first time you get a babysitter, "Oh my gosh, there's another influence here." But what happens when you get that great babysitter? Or when you put your kid in kindergarten, you're like, "Okay, it's not so bad. This is pretty good. Maybe we need a whole community to raise this kid." So it's the same thing with business. And
Mm.
so when the first step is writing down all the things you do. Self-awareness is the key to success. Absolutely. So
Mm.
writing down everything you do, just have a piece of paper and morning I do this, then I do this, I do this, I do this. And then you'll start to really understand all the tasks, everything that you are doing. And you can go the next step and like everything, even personally. Are you going to the grocery store? Are you cleaning your house? What are you doing all day? And once you can get really clear, you can look at that list and start to evaluate first and foremost, what are the things that only I can do? No one else can do it. I'm the best. Um, and what are the things that I'm really good at it, but someone else could do it pretty well too, maybe even better. And then what are the things that I just am not good at? And it takes me so much time because I hate it and I'm not good at it. You can just hear from my voice. That's where you start. The stuff that is draining your energy, that is just, you don't like it, you're not good at it, that needs to be removed. That needs to be done by somebody else. And again, whether that is having a house cleaner, having a personal shopper, somebody that brings, like whatever, the household manager,
Mm.
whatever the things are that don't fuel you, the sooner you can offload those and pay someone else probably less than you would make an hourly rate, that's when this new burst of energy comes. That's when you can really focus on the thing that you do the best. And and then start one by one letting go of those things. And as you do that, and as you do it, you could put it in an organizational chart so that you could see generally we've got finance, we've got product quality, right? We've got legal, um, marketing, technology. These are all sort of positions on an org chart. And if one of those things you're just not good at, like let's just say you're terrible at sales, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
There are people who live to sell. What if you're terrible at marketing? Why are you doing it?
Mm.
There's people who live, they studied it, right? They're looking for that job.
Yeah.
So as you start to like move these puzzle pieces around and remove yourself 20 years later, and it doesn't have to take you this long, I've been completely replaced. I mean, completely.
Mm.
And there's a moment where that feels bad. Like, well,
Yeah.
what's my value? Well, the value is now you have free time. You have what you went into this for,
Yeah.
which was free time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then you're still the one that is sharing in a more impactful way. If we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yeah.
we just walk through that. Essentially, you said in the beginning, there was that desperation energy, like, I need to make sure my girls are okay. Rich is sick. I need more money. So, food, shelter, water. That's the first part
That's the
of
first. Yeah.
Maslow. Right. And now we're in the self actualization, I think is what it's called, where you're looking at the impact you can make for others, for women like us, for men, for anyone, who is looking to find the financial freedom that they so desire to create that life that they love. And so that's your purpose, Kathy. That's what
That's
you're
it. No,
here for.
it's so funny. I just thought about this yesterday that when you start a career or a
Mhm.
business, it's kind of almost the same lifeline as being a child, right? As a
Mm.
toddler, of course, a toddler is selfish, right? That's kind of the phase of
Mine,
life.
mine, mine.
It is. It's mine, and they're learning about themselves. And the
Yeah.
first few years of business, it is all about you. You're trying to make a living,
Yeah.
trying to get enough money. Any startup, people know that you're working a lot and
Mhm.
oftentimes for free. That's
Mm.
that's
Goodness.
for your own, like you said, existence.
Mhm.
It's after that, as you start to get success,
Mhm.
that's when suddenly your role changes, and that's the hardest part for people to do, to make, is going from desperation to
Yeah.
leadership, to
Mm.
where now your job is to coach and mentor the people who will be running your company. Your job has changed from doing to leading.
Mm.
And at that point, you're raising children. It's like a different thing. You've got a family you're taking care of within the business, that your job is to coach and mentor them. And and watch them grow. Again, we're at a place at Real Wealth where our job is just to coach these people into becoming leaders, to make their own decisions, that we're not always hovering over them,
Yeah.
because they've been well trained, their systems in place, but not so rigid that they don't have flexibility and freedom to treat the company like it's their own.
Mm. Mm. I love that. I love that. This conversation definitely took a little bit of a turn. So let's turn back to real estate a little bit. But it's a little selfish because I'm going through some of those stages now where we have seen a lot of success. Kathy, we're just still basking in a retreat that we had last week with our
Mm.
doctors. We did goat yoga. It was a wellness retreat. We got to talk about money, real estate, taxes,
Aw.
and I just love this small but mighty company that I've created. But having that 3-year, 10-year vision to invigorate the team, I'm finally getting the right butts in the right seats,
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting journey. And just again, you are my mentor from afar, whether you know it or not, woman. So I'm
Oh,
just
thank
looking at
you.
you. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Kathy, when I was at InvestorCon, I saw you share some market updates, and you share the same on the Bigger Pockets podcast as well as your podcast. And so you are known for providing these amazing updates in a digestible way, complex information we can kind of chow down on in a way that is meaningful for our investing strategy. My question to you: What are some of the top indicators that you're looking at right now for out of state investing? What should we be looking at as investors as we approach, our market research, so that we're not completely overwhelmed?
Yeah, I mean, remember I said earlier, real estate needs people, right? If you're in an
Mhm,
area that is shrinking, people are
mhm.
leaving, the population is shrinking, the wage growth is going down. We saw this a lot in what has been known as the Rust Belt, when businesses left, maybe went to China, and suddenly you had entire towns with no employment.
Yeah.
So, that those are depressed areas. So, to invest, you really want to be in the opposite, right? You want to be in areas where businesses are coming in, and that's attracting people, and that's creating wage growth, and then, the ability for people to afford what you're offering. So, that's probably the most important metric. And I, was fortunate enough to learn this when I first started, and also, I'm from California, so I have a bias where I do believe the greatest wealth is created through appreciation versus cash
Mhm.
flow. Cash flow is
Mm, okay.
important. Yeah, it's a different. I can just tell you from our fund, we did a single family rental fund. I don't know, 7 years ago. We have another one today that's different, but the one we did back then, we bought in appreciating markets like Southeast and Florida. Then cash flow is kind of broke even. And then we offset that with a bunch of properties in Ohio and Detroit and Indianapolis. And those cash flow pretty well, but typically don't appreciate.
Mm.
So at the end, when we sold everything off, the properties that didn't really cash flow that well, but that were in high growth markets, had about a 28% annual return. And the cash flow properties had about a 6%. So the difference in your money, the growth of your money between 6% and 28% is pretty massive. So that was telling. What's also telling is that born and raised in California, and I've seen millionaires be created just from living in a house, because appreciate the property goes up so much in value. Same with New York. So too often, especially high net worth people, go for the cash flow when you don't really need the cash flow. That's not, and unless you're trying to quit your job today, but did you study for 10 years so that you could quit? I doubt it. Most people that are high net worth are looking for something to be able to replace their very expensive lifestyle, right? It's one thing if you always made $50,000 a year and you're trying to retire on that later. That's going to be a little easier than if you make 300,000. How on earth are you going to retire on that if you live another 40 years, right? So higher net worth people need to be looking at something different. And that is the biggest mistake I think I see people make. Coming back to why am I doing this? Having that time frame is so important. Are you looking to retire in 10 years, 20 years? Your plan is going to be so different than the person who's flipping a house and needs to know what the market's going to be like in 3 months,
Yeah.
right? Totally different thing.
Yeah.
So when you're looking to build long-term wealth,
Hmm.
then you need to be in an area that looks good for the long term, right? So it's to me, buying a newer, nicer property in a good area with good schools is going to have less issues for me during that 10 to 20-year journey. And again, it's counterintuitive because people want to buy the old house, fix it up, blah, blah. You don't have time for that. If you're a busy person, you don't have time. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
It's a job. You don't
A
need a
whole
second job.
job. It
You
is.
don't need it, unless you really hate your job.
Mhm.
That's different.
Yeah.
But think about how long it took you to learn your job. Don't think you can jump into real estate and suddenly be good overnight. It doesn't work that way. It also takes those 10,000 hours. It also takes time to be good at it. So trying to simplify and be as passive as possible because you're already working means you probably want to buy newer, you want to buy nicer, better areas, growing areas. Where are the jobs moving? Where are the people moving? Where do people want to live? And know that, for example, if I am investing on a 10-year plan, I want to see an area where the city or the county also thinks that way. Counties are looking at where are we going to be in 10 years, and
Mm.
they generally build to that plan. So you're going to see new freeways in the areas where they see growth. You're going to see new hospitals, new schools. These are clues to you as to where the growth is headed. That's kind of always been our thing, is like, where are cities and counties and states investing in their infrastructure. And that should give you a pretty good clue of where things are going to be in 10 or 20 years.
Okay, so this is amazing, and it falls in line with many of our properties that perform really well with our midterm rental strategy, Kathy. So
Yes.
this is where, yeah,
Yeah.
we help families who are displaced from their homes. So we focus primarily on displaced families who are insurance policy holders and they need a place to stay while their properties are being renovated or rebuilt. And
Mhm.
we get paid by the homeowners insurance, like Allstate, State
Oh,
Farm,
yeah. It's
et cetera.
great for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that is our whole cup of tea. We do that corporate housing strategy, and you're right. The higher the value area, the nicer the schools, the density of the population. A lot of owner occupied homes, the places where people want to live, is
Yeah.
where we're seeing massive success in terms of opportunity as well. So it's interesting how that buy box coincides with our strategy in the midterm rental realm. We do short and midterm rentals. So midterm rentals, we only focus on the insurance side of things. I know there's travel nurses and all of that. My sister's a travel nurse, but nevertheless, we just focus on the insurance. So that goes hand in hand for sure. And that's shocking what you just shared about the 6% versus the 28%. I was like, okay. So in terms of that buy box you kind of built out for us, could you tell us a little bit more about your build to rent projects? I know you have one coming up that you're going to be heading out to in a few days.
Yeah, I am. So syndications are kind of the next or a way to be almost completely passive.
What's a
Uh,
syndication, Kathy?
a syndication is a group investment where investors can just give money to someone and that person manages it for them. Generally, that would be a security, and you would need a securities license to invest, or you'd need a public company, right? We can invest in the stock market. And when it comes to private companies, there's very strict regulations on how to be able to take investor money, and it's called a syndication, basically. And in 2012, Obama passed the Jobs Act that made it more accessible for smaller companies to raise money without having to go public, basically. So the rules are that generally you have to be an accredited investor. That means that you have a $200,000 income as an individual or 300,000 as a couple, or you have $1 million net worth excluding your residence. And if you are accredited, then the SEC is a little more comfortable that you're not putting your last dollar into this investment, because the SEC's job is to protect, the widows, the
Yeah.
people that tend to get taken advantage of. But they figure, I don't know how they come up with it, but if you have enough money, you should be savvy enough. And I agree with that. Like if you're putting 50 or $100,000 into an investment, you should be able to afford a couple of hours of an attorney's time to look at the deal.
Mhm.
I've seen it too often. People putting a $500,000. I met people who put $1 million. Doctors, a doctor who put $1 million, got all her friends to put $1 million in this apartment syndication that went bad. Nobody took the time to spend $500 to have an attorney review it.
Yeah.
It's shocking to me.
And it's
You know,
sometimes a bias, right? You know, a friend who's a doctor, certainly they know,
they
but
must know, yeah, and
yeah.
they're busy. They're doctors. They're not necessarily experts in investing. So
Yeah.
the SEC looks like if you make enough money, you should be able to afford advisors to look at the deals for you. That's probably they're thinking about what qualifies you as an accredited investor. Not that you've passed any test for investing. They don't care about that. So so anyway, syndication is a group investment. My team and my partner, who's in San Antonio and builds rental properties, we've partnered and we're raising money from accredited investors to build a build to rent community, which is kind of the hot topic today. It's really getting harder and harder. There's very limited inventory out there. So building the inventory is what's needed. They say we've got realtor.com came out with a report saying there's a lack of 7 million affordable homes. We have a massive generation. We have massive immigration. We've seen that, whether legal or illegal. And there is tremendous demand for housing. The largest generation ever is at a first time home buying age. And the properties just aren't there. So bringing on new supply is a really great niche right now because it's helping solve that problem by bringing in affordable housing. And San Antonio, and specifically the zip code
Mm.
that we're building in, is it one of the top 10 fastest growing zip codes in America. So fast growing, lots of jobs coming in, and just not enough housing. So we are raising, I think it's 3 million, $3.5 million, and then getting a construction loan on top of that to build 26 duplexes for a lot of the tech workers in the area. And you've got a big military base there too. Lots of growth in the area. We offer a 12.5% preferred return. And
Wow.
for people who don't know what that is, generally in a syndication, you got to look at the part of the documentation, the offering documents that tells you how you're going to get your money back, right? A lot of people don't look at that. But yeah, you want to know how am I going to get my money back? So generally, the first funds out go to pay your capital back, but you need to read the document to make sure. Next money is paying a preferred return, which means that as profits come out of the project, it goes to investors first. That's the preferred return. We do that to 12.5%. So per
Nice.
year until you've made your money back plus 12% per year, we don't get a cut of the profits.
Mm.
So understanding that's really important, what a preferred return is. But we're very confident in the project. This builder we've been working with for 10 years. He's built in the area, lives there. It's when you do a syndication, you want to make sure that the people that you're giving your money to have a track record in the thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So before we wrap, Kathy, could you let our audience know how to connect with you if they're an accredited investor and they have some questions? What's the best way to learn a little bit more about this deal? Because 12 and a half is really nice.
Yeah, yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah.
Plus, you get all the tax deductions. It's an LLC, so it passes
Mm.
down. You still get all those benefits. You just
Right.
don't have to manage it or get a loan or do any of the things that, we try to make at Real Wealth. We try to make investing, building your own portfolio as passive as possible, but it's still not passive unless you're in a syndication.
Yeah.
But just realwealth.com. If you click on the join, you'll see, you know, get all the information there. It's free to join. Or you can just go to, again, realwealth.com and click on the uh, invest tab, and that will show you where current syndications are.
Nice. All right.
Mhm.
We will add the link in the show notes, realwealth.com, and look at the invest tab. So we're wrapping up our show today, Kathy. I have three questions for you. You weren't prepped for this, so this is rapid fire.
Okay, let's see how
But
my brain's working today.
yeah, let's go. It's super fun. So, can you share a moment with our audience where you felt completely burnt out and how you overcame it?
Oh, that is so good. I we went through a little bit of a tough time a few years back when um, we brought in some leaders who kind of turned on me. I don't know how.
Oh.
It was very strange, uh, and so I was just kind of didn't feel useful. So I was very burned out. Even though our book talks about how to do that, how to replace yourself, you want to replace yourself with people who have the same values, and that's why we talk about that, like values, mission.
Mhm.
Like they need to be aligned on the most important thing. And
Yeah.
somehow I missed it with these two guys. So they just wanted to do things their way, and it wasn't with the kind of integrity that I stand for. So I just wanted to fire them, but I didn't know how.
Oh
But
man.
finally, we had a discussion about how unhappy I was, and they just left. So that made it really easy. It was like because again, with the values, when you talk with your employees and remind them every day of the values, and they're doing something that's not aligned with your values,
Yeah.
it's pretty easy. They'll leave. They'll go somewhere else where they can do those kinds of things. Right?
I love that. So it sounds like you were transparent. You said, you know what, I'm not happy with this arrangement. So good for
Yeah.
you, speaking up for yourself.
Yeah.
So that's
Speaking up.
what we're doing. Yes, love it. Question number two: what's a book or a resource that completely changed your perspective on life or on your work? Anything you'd like to share?
There's an early book I read called The Science of Getting Rich. It's an
Mm.
old book, but it's So much of wealth is in the head, in your mind. And so many of us block our channel to wealth because of ideas that we got from childhood or from other people. So the science of getting rich really just sort of was an adjustment to my brain, helping me see that being wealthy wasn't evil, wasn't selfish, that
Mm.
in fact you could be, Mother Teresa was one of the wealthiest people in the world. People
I
don't
did not
realize.
know that. Wait a second. Hold up. Let's say that again because I did not know that.
I mean, I need to look it up to verify, but so many churches gave her money
Yeah.
because she was so loved. But what do you
Mm.
think she did with the money? She wasn't buying Ferraris, right? So being wealthy can be used for good, right? And so often we think the opposite. But if we think that wealth is a bad, greedy thing, why on earth would we want it? Why would we want to be that? So,
Mm.
science of getting rich, like whatever is going to help you shift into a mindset, an abundance mindset, is really important.
Oh, so good. All right. So we'll add that to the show notes too. Question number 3. This is a fun one. What's the craziest real estate story you've ever heard of or experienced?
I've got so many, but let's
Oh
see.
no.
The first that comes to mind, there were many, like during the foreclosure crisis. It was
Yeah.
like you never knew what you were getting. You just like dead bodies, like all just crazy. It was hard. But the first thing that came to mind was when I got lazy and too
Uh-oh.
trusting. Most of the mistakes I made was when I was too trusting. Because as women, we can
Mm.
be trusting. I mean, just people in general can be trusting, but in real
Mhm.
estate, it's not a good value. You need
Mhm.
due diligence first and foremost, everything in written agreements, everything spelled out. Written agreements prevent disagreements. I see it all the time, but I got lazy. And one of the teams that, we refer our clients to teams nationwide who, like I said, find the property, get it into rent ready condition, and manage it for you to make it turnkey. Well, we were pretty well known. I don't know, this is probably 10 years ago, pretty well known for offering these really high net worth clients that anyone would want, this flow of clients. So I never thought anyone would ever want to give me a bad deal. Like, why would they do that and cut off this relationship? So, one of the teams I was vetting, I usually like to buy a property first to test out the team. And I didn't get an inspection or an appraisal. I was just like, yeah, I'll just get that. And then I went to visit it after we closed. And the neighbor comes by. He's like, "Oh, you're that dumb Californian. You're the one who bought this piece of crap." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "This thing's a tear down. You got to get these tenants
Mhm.
out. They're gonna die." I mean, like he's literally like, "This house is gonna fall."
Oh my
Yeah. So I went back to the guy and it was like, "Okay, my bad, but you're bad too, and you got to buy this back." And we threatened lawsuits and stuff. He did buy it back, but it was just like, oh my gosh, don't trust anyone. Always do your due diligence. Always go through the checklist. Get your inspection. Get your appraisals. Don't cut corners. Stick with your buy box.
God. I love that. In the pharmacy, we say trust but verify. Yes, I trust
Yes,
all the texts, but I'm going to verify that drug is that drug,
every
that patient. So trust but verify. It's funny how career information can translate into our real estate deals as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to trust or just get busy,
Mhm.
get lazy, whatever,
Yeah.
but the consequences are pretty severe if you get it wrong.
Goodness, goodness. And I appreciate that you purchase one, to help do that due diligence for those investors that you care about. Make sure that they're made whole in every situation. So good for you on that. Well, that's a wrap. Wow, Kathy, what an amazing and inspiring conversation today. Is there anything else you would like to share with the community? How can we find you? Where should we be following you? Let us know.
Well, I give regular updates on my Instagram, Kathy Fettke, just on what's going on in the economy and the housing market. And then the Real Wealth Show is my podcast. You already said On the Market is a podcast I'm on, and then my book Retire Rich with Rentals has the checklist, has a lot of the information that will help ease that fear gremlin. Like it will feed the information it needs.
I love it. I love it. And we'll add all of those links to the show notes. Guys, I hope you're feeling as motivated and inspired as I am. And I hope you're realizing that financial freedom and time for the things you absolutely love are within reach. So remember, we don't have to take these giant leaps. In Kathy's book, she talks about inch by inch, we can take some baby steps, okay? So your homework is to start with one small step today, whether it is clarifying your why or exploring, well, is real estate for you? Because you deserve peace, you deserve financial peace, you deserve a life that balances your amazing success with your well-being. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show. Until next time, keep dreaming big, my friends. Stay grounded and know that a balanced, fulfilling life is possible. Love you all to the moon and back. This is Dr. Rachel Gainsbrugh signing off. Bye-bye for now.